You have to draw every day if you want to be a real artist. I know you've probably heard this advice before, and I know I've heard it. I've heard it a lot of times. In fact, I know that right now, if I type that into YouTube, I'll find a slew of videos, most of which actually will talk about the extreme sides of this issue. Many will talk about how you have to draw every day if you want to do this, because that's the level of seriousness that is required. But you will find a compelling amount of videos on the opposite side as well, saying that this is some of the most terrible advice you could possibly get. So what do you do? Well, I think the reality is you should draw every day if you want to do something with your artwork. And I want to immediately throw out the caveat that I don't draw every day, but I try to. And I think that is exactly where we need to start. That having the goal of drawing every day is a wonderful thing, but you also have to be gracious with yourself because you won't always hit it. I think we all know at some gut level that if we drew every day and we drew seriously with focused practice time in that time that we're dedicating, that we would improve. We would continue to improve. And I don't think many people deny that. When you look at drawing every single day, if you are drawing with intent, you are going to improve. You are going to get better. The place that this advice falls flat for most people is that if you draw every day and assume you will get better, but all you draw every day is the exact same thing, or you just draw a circle every day for 5 minutes, it's not going to do much for you. But I don't think most people really think that's true. I don't think most people think that if I draw for 5 minutes every day, I'm going to get better, or that if I draw a circle or a robot or an anime girl every single day and that's all I ever draw, that I will get better. I think most of us understand at some fundamental level that if you want to improve, that you need to challenge yourself, that you need to put time into it, and that you probably need to get some form of feedback over time. All of these are not the same as just draw every day. And maybe that's really where the problem comes in, that people focus on this, you should draw every day. In fact, all you need to do, you only have to draw every day and you'll improve. And that's just not true. I think that trying to draw every day is a great place to start, though. And I think that the thing that needs to accompany that, of course, is that you have to be kind to yourself about it. I miss days. My goal is to draw every single day. I've got an awesome life and a good setup for doing it. I still miss days because things come up. We've had some health concerns in the last couple weeks. We've had times of running to the hospital, and that makes it really hard to get in your art time when you're at the ER at midnight. We are all fine, by the way, but those kind of situations are requiring of grace because life happens. And if you are the kind of person who looks at that and you go, oh, I failed today, I missed my day because of X, Y, or Z, that's where I think you have to be careful. You have to work backwards from that. So let's think about this for a moment. If your goal is to improve consistently, your goal is to get better all the time, then yeah, you want to draw or paint, and I throw the term drawing around, but I mean art. It just doesn't sound as good to say you should art. So you should draw as often as you can. And for many of us, that's going to be eking out a couple hours here and there throughout the week. Some days you might be able to get 15 minutes in. Some days you might be able to get 2 or 3 hours in. I got 0 hours in yesterday. I got an hour and a half in today. That's kind of how my life goes. I try desperately to get in time every single day, but I can't. And I try also not to beat myself up for that because that seems like it's not going to achieve anything. My goal is to get better. And in order to do that, I'm drawing robots. If you haven't noticed, this is the continuation of my robot series. I think I might be in the 70s now. If I'm not there, I'm really close. So, which is exciting because the goal originally was to complete these 100 robots. So for me, not only is the desire to draw every day, I have several different things that I work on. I'm working on these robots. I often work on eldritch and creature designs. I've got a children's book that I want to illustrate. I always have things to work on. I think that's really important. If you want to improve, if you want to try to draw every day, make sure you have things to focus on. There's nothing worse than sitting down. Well, of course, there's things that are worse, but there's few things artistically worse than sitting down to work. You finally got the time allocated, and then you're not inspired. You're not motivated. You don't know what to focus on. So not only should you try to get in your time as frequently as you can, but you should try to make sure that you have things to focus on. For me, it's these silly little robots. I often don't end my time only working on them, but I would be happy with this particular session if that little frog dude on the left is all that I got done. But no, I kept going, and I'm going to do this next guy, which kind of looks like one of the, not bullet bills, but the chomps from Mario. And then actually in this session, I continued and I did a really big dragon on the bottom as well. That will actually probably be in the next sketchbook session because I want to make sure the footage works. But having these robots to come to gives me something that I can always jump into. I don't need to spend a lot of time thinking. And that's good because sometimes at the end of a tough day, you can be paralyzed when it comes to making a decision. So don't make a decision in that moment. Make a decision ahead of time. The decision is already there. What are you studying this week? What are you working on? It's part of the reason why in our Discord server we have weekly prompts. These are just goofy drawings that I have for anybody who's in the server that they can focus on if they don't know what to do that week. A lot of them are goofy and fun too, so they're kind of enjoyable. And then we also have things we study each week. The week that I'm recording this, which is May 7th, that's not the week, that's the day. The day that I'm recording this is May 7th, and this week we are studying snakes in the Discord server. I have not started my studies for the week, but I'm excited for them. I love reptiles, and I went and found a whole bunch of interesting ones, including some new snakes that I was unaware of, which is always so much fun. But I've got an inland taipan on there. I've got a boa, a python. I think I have a boa. I'm not 100% sure on that actually, but a rattlesnake and an anaconda. Anacondas are one of these animals that have an almost evil face to them. Like most critters just look like critters, but anacondas, I swear, they look like they're something that is just devious. If it was an actual snake that was in the Garden of Eden that sold us out, it was an anaconda. I am fairly certain. So I think it's a good idea to try to draw every day. And in that, to understand that you're going to miss some days. And then also to make sure that you have specific things to focus on. For me, it's the robots, and I've got some other stuff as well. In addition, though, I think it's important to try to work on things that challenge you. The robots are not always challenging to me, but I can say that as always because there are some that are. These guys today are pretty chill, but I'm still getting a chance to practice on perspective, to think about my framing and how I'm putting it together. The one underneath this was far less stressful, even though it was way more detailed. But there was one a couple sessions back that was a dragon that I started with a yellow brush pen, and he was kind of stressful. And I tried with him really to think about form, like nothing is directly from the top or directly from the side. Everything is at a little bit of a 3/4 angle, and it took a lot more time and a lot more thought to sort through everything that needed to happen there. So that's another thing I would throw into the draw everyday bin, is make sure you also challenge yourself. If all you can do in a day is just sit there and make some marks on your page and focus on the things that you've preordained that you're going to focus on, that's great. But as often as you can, extend beyond that and work on things that are challenging for you. And again, these two drawings right now are not particularly challenging for me. They're mostly fun. But I'm also choosing to do things at weird angles. I'm choosing to focus on three-dimensional shapes and forms. And am I nailing everything? No. Like some of the things here with the legs and the axle underneath that they're supported on is kind of wonky. The perspective on it's not perfect, but part of that's working with a pen, and I'm okay with that. Again, I'm making so many of these. I'm just trying to learn on every single one. But you have to challenge yourself if you really want to grow and you really want to improve. And I assume that if you're looking at advice and you've heard the advice that you need to draw every day, that part of your goal is to get better. So not only is it draw every day, is it be gracious with yourself, is it make sure you have preordained ideas, but also work on things that challenge yourself. The nice part about this is that regardless of what you want to focus on, there's always some field adjacent to that that's going to challenge you. For me, for example, right, I'm working on these robots. This always gives me a chance to practice perspective, to study construction material and how other people work on robots. There's a couple Instagram pages that I follow specifically because they work on robots all the time. And I've sat down before and just copied their designs, but really specifically studied their designs, try to figure out, for me, the hardest part is like, how do things attach? Like I can get silhouettes that look cool and I can put them down on the page, but how does that arm attach to the body? And what about it implies that it can move in the same range of movement that a human arm can? Those kinds of things for me are difficult. They don't make a lot of natural sense to me. Maybe some of you are engineers or you're people that, you spent so much time with Legos that all that stuff makes perfect sense to you. That's great. It doesn't for me. I really have to think about how are these things intersecting. And I know full well, like looking at the froggy guy on the left side, I'm not sure those legs really make sense, but every time that I do these, I try to get just a little bit better about it. Try to think about how this wheel or gear or joint is going to function and it's going to allow this thing to move the right way. So if you're working on creatures, you're working on characters, whatever it is that you're proficient at, there's always something that's right next to that you can work on. You're really good at faces, then start working with posing, start working with the structure of the figure. You're really good with clothing, well, focus on one of the prior things I mentioned. If you're working on creatures and you're awesome at drawing their heads, like I kind of run into, then you, like me, probably need to focus more on the joints, on understanding how the spine intersects with the head, how it connects, how the front arms of a dragon might be different than the back legs, just the legs of a dragon, and how everything functions. And if you're going to throw wings on them, you're going to make them hexapodal. We don't have anything like that on our planet, so you're going to have to think about how those joints work too. But again, there's so many awesome resources on the internet, and there's lots of people who've solved those issues before as well. So you've always got places that you can go, places that you can look at that will help you with those kinds of things. But I think that's really what it comes down to from my perspective. It is not bad advice to draw every day. It is terrible advice to assume that drawing every day is going to be the only thing that you need to do to get better. And it's also bad advice if you are the kind of person who beats yourself up because you miss a day. We're all going to miss a day. That's part of being human. So just keep in mind that advice is good as long as you're gracious with yourself. You try to get time in as often as you can. You challenge yourself. And in lieu of all that, just draw some robots. It's better for everybody. Well, as always, thank you for your time. This ramble was a little bit different than normal, but I hope that it was beneficial for you, and I hope you're drawing some robots too. If you want to join our Discord server, there's a link to it below. I mentioned some other things that we do on it, so I'm not going to belabor that point here, but please check it out if you're so intrigued. Thank you to patron Who, What, Where, When for your continued support. And if you are interested in helping decide what happens in these podcasts and sketchbook sessions, what I ramble about, if you'd like to see the scripts ahead of time while they're still in progress, you can support the channel through the Patreon link below. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.